Hey folks, it's Ray with Taste Radio. Right now I'm speaking with the one and only Danielle LiVolsi, the founder and CEO of NuttZo. Danielle, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I thought I had a nice setup here in our studios at BevNet headquarters. You have a pretty legit setup yourself. And I asked you before we started recording if you were actually in your office or at home. And it sort of looks like a hybrid between both. And you explain exactly why.
Yeah, no, I when I launched in 2009, I wanted to be virtual because I knew I would work from anywhere. And being an entrepreneur, you're working all hours and all the time. So I launched my business virtually, and all of our employees work virtually. So it was kind of easy during the pandemic. Nothing had changed as far as that goes.
I'm sure you've shared some tips with other entrepreneurs. You told me a while back about this great Facebook group called OMG CPG that I was unaware of, but you said it's been very helpful for you and also for a lot of the early stage entrepreneurs representing emerging brands as well. What kind of dialogue goes on in that group?
Yeah, it's a very I mean, anyone can join. So obviously, I've been doing this for 13 years. There's a lot of companies that are just starting out. And honestly, I'm a little jealous because, I don't even know if, I guess Facebook was going on, but there definitely wasn't this group. And what's nice about it is people will ask questions, things that like every entrepreneur has, especially starting out in a business. So it could be everything from trying to find a co-packer or a particular ingredient. I just used it recently to ask about a referral for a certain agency. I think it was for Amazon, an Amazon agency, but it's a great place. And what I like the most about it, there's a lot of great groups out there and networking groups, but it's all about CPG companies. So it's, in our space, we need a different Amazon agency than maybe somebody that's doing clothing, right? So yeah, it's really awesome. And if you haven't joined the group, join the group.
I guess there's also a lot of conversation about supply chain issues that have been ongoing during the pandemic. What are some of the things that have really affected you and affected your business throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, honestly, the pandemic had its own set of issues, right? And it was, but I would say right now, post-pandemic or almost post-pandemic, the issues right.
Almost
I
pandemic.
know every time we think it is, it's not over. But the repercussions of the 2020 are just insane this year, and everyone is struggling. So there's this whole issue of not having enough employees for truckers, for logistics. So there's not anyone that wants to drive an 18-wheeler, I guess, to go pick up, all of our brands to take them to a retail store. So there's a big issue with that. Gas prices are extremely high. Everything's expensive right now. All of our ingredients were delayed. There's certain delays on packaging. So paper products, and people have heard about, like, if you're trying to build a house, there's no wood. I mean, there's like, it could almost be giving you panic attacks. So yeah, we've dealt with a lot. We've had two of our main ingredients, one of them being coconut and sesame seeds, two different issues, but the coconut, we couldn't find a shipping container that would, everything was so backed up in ports that we couldn't get it, even though we had it at the port, we just couldn't get it onto a ship to ship across the ocean. And then our biggest issue, we've been out of sesame seeds since June. And that was because, as everyone knows, India really got hit hard with COVID. So while they were going through the peak of COVID, one of our places where we actually pasteurize our sesame seeds in India went and had to shut down because of a certification issue. And then we couldn't get anybody in to fix the problem. So that plant just kept, it was like shut down indefinitely. So we are now, no kidding, last week, we just finally got our sesame seeds released, and it's been really painful because we launched our famous tahini 5-seed fusion butter in Whole Foods globally in July. So yeah, it's been interesting to say the least.
Well, there's some solidarity in knowing that you're not the only one going through these issues. You might have an issue sourcing and pasteurizing certain ingredients, but at the end of the day, everyone in the food industry, everyone in the beverage industry is facing similar issues. Does that make it a little bit easier, or is it still, well, this sucks and I'm not really sure, what the answer is beyond, a month or two?
Yeah, no, we stay pretty focused on us. And so obviously I know it's going on and there has to be a little bit of, helping me sleep at night because I know it's a worldwide problem. But at the end of the day, buyers don't want to hear excuses. Retailers don't want your stuff to be delayed, and it affects them and their bottom line. And so at the end of the day, no one really cares about the excuse. You just need to figure out how to get your product on the shelf and keep it on the shelf. So there's always stress.
You've been doing this a long time, as you mentioned, and 13 years is a long time to feel stressed out. How have you avoided stress or relieved stress, in the time that you've been doing this?
Well, a glass of wine now and again always helps, but that could get dangerous. So no, one of the things I kind of have always been uncompromising on is my me time. I even put myself into timeout boxes once in a while when I'm like, you need to go and just, decompress. So I'm a big, I don't go crazy, but just, getting some good exercise in. I just did a 47-mile bike ride with my youngest, who's 18, in Montana. We did a race, mountain bike race. So I was training for that. So I always make sure I've got, some other thing that I'm kind of working on the side that gives me that downtime that I'm not thinking about my business. Well, I could be writing and still thinking about it, but you know what I mean? I'm not, in front of my computer. So I definitely always tell entrepreneurs starting out, you have to give yourself some downtime. And the hardest part is going to bed knowing like you have like 100 things on your to-do list. Like I hate lists. I don't do lists because it's daunting to me. And I don't understand how you do a list when you're an entrepreneur, because there's a million things and they're going to stay on your list forever and ever and ever, until, you're no longer doing it. So, anyway, so yeah, a lot of me time and really scheduling it into my calendar. So it's not a compromise. I can, I have to do it.
When I ask entrepreneurs about this type of advice, I always assume that they wish they could give themselves that advice when they started out. When you started out, you were not in the food business. How did you get into this business? What were you doing before NuttZo?
Yeah, so I've worked my whole life since I was 16. I started at McDonald's, like I know a lot of people. So I've been.
What were you doing at McDonald's, by the way?
Well, I was, asking you what you wanted for your meal that day, and if you wanted extra fries. So
you were a cashier, a service person.
Yeah.
Right?
And I worked in the drive-through. I worked back flipping burgers. Yeah, no, that was so if I was 16, I had to be like a sophomore. So I've been working my whole life, and I'm not afraid to work. That's probably a very good positive trait as an entrepreneur. But what I ended up doing after college was really getting into sales. So business was my major, and I worked for a really large firm in New York City called Hachette Philippaki Magazines, and got my foot in the door in sales. And it was like, crack. I loved it. Just because you seriously, I don't know, can I say that, but in a positive way, just because it's kind of like this thing, like the sky's the limit, right? Like on how much you can make. And I have to believe what I'm selling. So I can't just sell, something that I don't believe in. But it gave me so many great skills. And my desire was always to have my own business. So I have talked to patent attorneys. I've had some crazy ideas that I've kicked down the road while being a sales manager, sales executive, moved out out to San Diego and got into radio advertising sales, was the manager of new business there, which some people don't like to do, but that again was a great challenge. And just really, constantly thinking about, what I could do to start my own business. I think honestly, to be a good salesperson, you have to be an entrepreneur at heart, because most sales positions, there's not a lot of micromanaging. You're out on your own. It's live or die. You're either going to sell and be successful or not. So there's a lot of similarities there. And even though I had some great ideas, right? None of them came to fruition except for NuttZo. So
Now, I know you've talked about why you launched NuttZo, sort of the history behind the brand. I know you've told that story a number of times, probably more than a few hundred times at this point. It's on your website. But for our own edification, for our listeners' benefit, just give us the brief story behind what the brand represents and why you felt the need to enter this space. Because for the longest time, this nut butter space didn't have a lot of innovation, was dominated by a handful of players, and was very difficult to break into.
yeah, well, I love the story, even though I have told it probably hundreds and hundreds of times, because it has to do with my two youngest boys. And, as I said, I had a great job in sales, radio sales. I did want to have my own business, but nothing I had come up with seemed like the logical next step. And then in the meantime, life kind of happens, and this really unique opportunity, which changed my life forever, was adopting. And so in 2002, I adopted a 3.5-year-old little boy. And it really changed my life in the fact that he lived in an orphanage for 3.5 years. We get him to the US, and he's super tiny. So he was like an 18-month-old, even though he was 3.5 years old. He was in the 5th percentile in height and weight. And, one of my loves is obviously cooking and nutrition on the side. So I was like, I've got to get all the nutrition in this little boy. He's already 3.5. And, it was one of many things. Greg also had 2200 eyesight, but he had no glasses and never would. So he had a lot of things coming at him that needed to be fixed. And not just, obviously his food, but that was where I came in. And so my first challenge was Greg did not like to eat, which is kind of unbelievable, but it isn't once you understand the body and, really not having a lot of food for 3.5 years. So that kind of gets shut down. And one of his biggest issues was he would eat bananas. So anything white, he was very into white foods. And then he loved bananas that were sliced. But if I tried to get him to eat any kind of texture, specifically like, animal protein that I felt like he probably really needed, he just would chew and chew and chew and chew and chew. And if you have kids, you can't make them swallow. And so we'd end up spitting it out. And I was just kind of so perplexed. So what I do best is problem solving. And I love nuts and seeds. I grew up eating Jif Smooth out of the jar with a spoon with my sister after school every day. So I grew up and really got into natural nut butters, but I got this big idea that I could make a vegan source of protein by taking peanuts, which are really a legume, putting them in my food processor, and then adding a bunch of different nuts and seeds, because different nuts and seeds have different vitamins and minerals. And I can make this like yummy little nut butter for him that I could put on his bananas, which he did eat. And that's what I did. And he ate it. And I ate a lot of it too, because it was really, really good. But that was really the genesis of it. And there was nothing else like it, because as you know, we only have mono butters up until 2008. So.
Well, it's a great idea. And there's lots of great ideas that folks have. Commercializing those ideas is always challenging. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Going from idea to finished concept is not the easiest thing to do in the world. How did you launch your first product? How did you teach yourself about the business? And are there any similarities between, what you did prior to launching NuttZo and developing the brand itself?
Yeah, I mean, everything led up to it, right? And it's always interesting to look back, and you couldn't change anything in your life because you needed all those experiences to get you to where you are today. Even I'm probably one of the most impatient people I know, but it all had to happen the way it did. So the whole chicken or the egg like scenario was so it because I couldn't figure out whether I needed to produce my recipe. I mean, the first thing is obviously getting the recipe nailed down, which took months and months, and there's all kinds of steps in that. And that was probably one of the hardest, just because I don't like to measure, and you obviously need to measure. But then beyond that was just trying to figure out, the chicken or the egg. Do I have to find a co-packer that can do a few jars, which is almost impossible, or do I need to sales? So you don't need a retailer to get into somewhere. And with nut butter, you can't just like go get a commercial kitchen and kind of, I guess you could kind of do that, but it's really hard
Nowadays, you probably could. Back
yeah, it
back
was
13 years ago, I don't think that was much of an option, or not. There weren't too many available for what you were
right. It would
doing.
have been harder. Yeah. And the nut butter, like the way it's ground, it's just a little different. But anyway, long story short, definitely got into, I would tell anyone, go local, go small. Like when I was in sales, starting out in sales, everybody told me, start off with the smaller clients, make all your mistakes there before you get to the big guys. And it's just like that in every aspect of being an entrepreneur. Like start off with the small guys. So I started off with our local amazing retailer called Jimbo's, and actually got to Jimbo himself and gave him a jar, and he was hooked from the first taste. And so, really started out small in San Diego before going on to Whole Foods. But I've made plenty of mistakes. I mean, I went up to the Whole Foods buyer SoPac region probably a few months after getting into Jimbo's with my best friend from radio sales. So we drove all the way up. It's 2 hours, traffic, everything. I made a nice basket. I had my jar of NuttZo in there, and I hadn't had it co-packed quite yet. So maybe it was right before Jimbo's actually put it into their store. But this whole story of the point of the story is, it was the chicken or the egg. So I take it up in a basket and give it to, I think I'm going to do like, I don't know if you've heard of Bare Naked and the whole Stu Leonard story, but like, I thought, oh, I'm just going to go meet the buyer. Of course, she will see me. And of course, that didn't happen. The receptionist was very sweet, but said that there's no way. So we left the basket there, and I felt very, defeated. Got back in the car to drive 2.5 hours home with my best friend. So at least that part was fun. And then I did get an email from the buyer, and she was like, listen, I can't try your product. She's like, because it doesn't have a tamper seal, which of course, even in 2008, who would eat anything without a tamper seal? But it didn't even cross my mind. So you just kind of have these small little things that you learn about, and you figure out. You got to pivot, turn, and you've got to problem solve all the time. And voila, I was in SoPac region probably within like 2009. It was definitely the end of 2009. That same buyer brought us in. I sold it. There's a way to do it in your regions of Whole Foods where you can get like your local Whole Foods store to put you in the system. And then you just piggyback on to like up to 100-mile radius. And so I sold into each store by myself, just going in and talking to the grocery team leader. And, that's how I launched the business, was really one store at a time, one stone turned, one store at a time.
Yeah, well, it seems to have worked. I mean, you're in a lot more than one or two stores now. And the interesting thing you talked about, I think in both cases, when it was with Jimbo's and with Whole Foods, is that you made the effort to make a face-to-face appearance. You made the effort to see these people in person. A little more challenging these days for a lot of reasons. But can you tell me about how you actually got to Jimbo himself? Jimbo's is a small chain of organic grocers and based in San Diego. I think they have more stores than they did when you first approached the company. But did it take a lot of perseverance to actually meet him, or was he a little bit more available, or was he more receptive to
Yeah.
meeting younger brands?
Well, I don't want to speak for him, but yeah, it's never that easy. So it's a great question. And yeah, so the way that I got to him was through a friend of a friend who happened to be like neighbors with Jimbo. And so the idea was I would do that same kind of gift baskety thing. And then I gave it to the friend of the friend, and she like walked it over and told Jimbo that he should try this nut butter and how amazing it was. And she kind of did the elevator pitch. You know, I'm sure I wrote a note or whatever, but like, again, it is, you know, there's a fine line between you know, knocking down a door and using a bulldozer, right? So you got to know the difference, but like you got to definitely knock that door down any way you can. So it's just it's a finesse. But yeah, nothing is easy.
No, it certainly sounds like it's not. Did you have a label at that point? Did you have your famous upside down
Yeah.
package at that point?
Yeah, and that was actually because, I mean, I came up with the idea because my first idea failed. I had really thought that I wanted to launch this nut butter in single serves because I'm, you know, super active myself. And I'm just like, I could eat nut butter all the time, anywhere. And it's kind of like a trail mix, you know, it stays, you don't need refrigeration. So my first idea was to do single serve. And I did see this guy in Colorado. I was a little disappointed when I did my search online because I saw he was starting out in single serve, and that would be Justin, of course, which he's a great guy. But
Justin
then
Gold of Justin's Nut Butters.
yeah, but that didn't stop me. So I wasn't like, oh shoot, because I could tell he wasn't that big in 2008. So I went and you know, my first thing was to find a co-packer, and I actually found one in LA. So I was still, you know, dead set on it because I'm an innovator. I want to do things differently. I don't want to just, you know, do the same thing. And I'm trying to solve problems. So I go up to this co-packer and I was like super excited, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then when it came to the end and they're like, okay, well, your minimum is 1 million single serve packets. I was like, what? Like, there's no way. That's chicken or the egg thing again, where like, I haven't even sold one and you want me to have 1 million of them and I'm bootstrapping. Like, no. So
how many packets were you looking to buy at the time or make?
Like maybe 2000. I mean, I just need a few, just a few. I mean, I'm starting out. I don't need a million.
Did they start laughing the way I started laughing?
Yes, they
I
did.
apologize for laughing.
Super nice guy. No. Because I'm an entrepreneur. Like you have no idea what minimums are in the real co-packing world. So I was super defeated. And after I had to pick myself up off the ground and dust myself off, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to, you know, if I'm going to keep doing this idea, like I'm going to have to resolve to the fact that it's going to be in a jar, which just seems so boring and so not innovative. And so then I don't know how it, like, I just have these moments. A lot of times it's when I'm putting myself in a timeout box or something, you know, like I can think best and have great ideas when I'm not working, which I think that's everyone. And so I got this idea because if you love nut butters like I do, and you get into natural nut butters, it's like this it's like a known fact that you buy the mono butter and you bring it home. The oils are going to separate because we don't want all those nasty hydrogenated oils. And so you put it upside down in your cupboard at home so that when you finally decide to open it and eat it, the oils actually have migrated to the bottom of the jar, which is obviously the top when it's upside down. And then that way, when you stir it, the oils aren't just like getting all over your counter space. It's very hard to sometimes stir those oils when they're at the, you know, at the very top of the jar when you take the lid off. So my great idea was to,
well, I was going to say, anyone who's ever had natural peanut butter has had that problem where you're mixing the jar and the oils are splashing all over the place. And you're like, why am I buying this stuff? The Jif.
Yeah.
You know, that the Skippy, that's a lot easier, even though you know it's terrible for you. But the natural stuff, and it's such a good idea to turn it upside. I've never actually done that.
Okay.
Unless I've had a jar of NuttZo at home because
it's that way.
The cap is on the bottom.
Yeah. And so that was my genius idea. And obviously, you know, my background, sales and marketing. And I was like, holy heck, I've got like this could be huge. You know what I mean? Like this could be so cool. It's going to be the only jar upside down on the shelf, and it serves a purpose. So yeah, that's how it got upside down.
Can I ask you a quick tangent to this whole story of how NuttZo was developed? I really enjoy being alone because it allows me time, gives me time to think, to ideate, to meditate, to do whatever I need to do away from the chaos or chaos that might be going on in my life. And it sounds like you appreciate alone time as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people think when they meet me, but I think I can be very charismatic and very extroverted, but I'm actually kind of an introvert. Like I need some downtime. Like I know to replenish myself. And to your point, my best thinking is by myself. And, I'm just like at this vibration that's extremely just kind of not, it doesn't need to be Zen, but it really needs to be, kind of in that meditative state. And I have like, if I'm getting a massage, I have some of my best ideas getting a massage. So just FYI, that's a trick.
That's a great tip. I love
Oh,
it.
I do. I'm a big get a massage. Yeah. And almost every time I have a big idea that you almost need like your little diary right there to write it down.
Wow, interesting. Maybe you can have like a digital recorder. You can sort of like quietly speak into it while your face is in that little
Exactly.
thing.
I think I would freak out the person massaging me, but it's a great idea.
Yeah, I wonder how many times you've thought of an idea like, oh, well, I can raise money here or I can raise money there. But you didn't do that for a long time. As you mentioned earlier, you bootstrapped the company and didn't take as far as I know, you didn't take money for years and years.
Right. No, I mean, I'm a little unique. That's all good or bad. But yeah, it's that goes back to how I grew up. I mean, my parents were kind of like pioneers. So I grew up on a lot of acreage in Pennsylvania. My dad was always a big thinker and had a million ideas brewing, but just, middle class. My mom was secretary, my dad was construction. And, so I know about bootstrapping from my childhood. And, I think it makes you smart, to be honest. And I, started the company ironically in a recession in 2008, if everyone can remember that. And a lot of people thought I was crazy, including my parents, but they were nice enough not to actually say it. But you know how you always know when your parents, what your parents are thinking, even when they don't say anything. But because I had a great job and lots of perks and was making a really good, a lot of money, but was not fulfilled and knew I had this other calling. So when I started, I mean, I didn't take any money. I think some of the biggest mistakes can happen when you have this surplus of cash, because there's so many times that you don't know how things are going to turn out. But I always think about this, if I had like $5 million when I launched my company, like I might not even be in business. Like it scares me in a weird way, because it would just make me make some big mistakes. Like marketing is one of the hardest things to figure out with your brand, because it's not like you can just, back in the day, you could just, there was only television and radio advertising and magazines, right? Now there's like 100 different ways to have brands coming at you 24/7, right? In every aspect of our lives, unless we're putting ourselves in the timeout box. So it was bootstrapping, like made me think about every dollar that was spent. And I think, I'm not saying everyone needs to do it like me. And there's been some great brands that, were pop-up brands and they had a lot of money and they're successful today. But for me, bootstrapping it, like it really helped me build these authentic, loyal customers, because I was doing all my own demos. I mean, it was me, myself, and I. And the board meetings, you saw me talking to myself, it's just because I'm having a board meeting, I did every aspect of this company, from accounting, which I absolutely hate. I don't ever want to be an accountant, to obviously being out there and being a demo person. So, but being out there and demoing our products, like I was like every customer was important, and telling that story 1,000,000 100 zillion times, like, was so important. So you're guerrilla marketing and you're building your base off of this customer who then buys it for this person as a gift, or tells this person, you really, really have to try this amazing product because it's so different and it tastes so amazing. That's how the company started. And I think that's why we're still in business today, is because we did do the guerrilla marketing. We did build this company from one loyal customer at a time. And, once you get that loyal customer, you don't ever want to lose it. They're so valuable as a brand, because loyalty is king.
The hustle is clearly important and was clearly important to the development of NuttZo. I'm thinking of three elements of the brand that probably played into its success. And I'm thinking of, well, the packaging was so stand out. You never saw another package like that on the shelf. The ingredients were all clean ingredient, organic, made with, in some cases, different kinds of seeds and nuts that I think had been seen in the nut butter category. And then the story behind the brand. If you could rank those three in order of how consumers picked up on and became those loyal customers of the brand, what would that order look like?
Well, yeah, the number one thing that it has to be is amazing taste, right? Like, if the packaging's great, you'll get that customer for one time. But if you don't have the most like delicious, out of this world, like orgasmic experience in your mouth, like, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to continue to get those loyalty, and customers aren't that loyal anymore, right? It's all about the sale, or it's like, especially, I'd hate to be a mono butter. Like, what's the difference between this butter and a generic butter, right? Like, it's just, you have to deliver on taste. 110. We've all bought the green powder that we knew was super healthy for us. And I mean, I've done it probably 24 times. And then I get it home, I'm really into it for 2 days. And then I'm just like, oh, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. It doesn't taste good. Like, there's no, I don't care how healthy it is for me, I'm not going to do it. And so taste is number one. Then I would definitely say the packaging, as much as I want to say the story. I do think the story is extremely important. And I, would put that as number three. But people want taste is number one. And then, the packaging is just your greatest marketing piece, right? So with no money, with $0 in marketing, if you've got a great label and package, like, that's more than half the battle, because you're going to show up on the shelf. And then the story for me, and I think customers are super smart, is it's very authentic, right? We all have heard stories. I mean, every brand probably has the story. I'm not saying that they're not authentic, but ours is extremely authentic. And it's kind of how I've built the brand, is on kind of how I feel and the authentic piece that I want it to be. So when I launched NuttZo, I co-founded a nonprofit called Project Left Behind. And it was because of my experience adopting my two boys that changed my life. And understanding the plight of these children, that obviously it's by luck on where we're all born in the world. And so I wanted to continue to do more. And I didn't want to just give to, there's a lot of great nonprofits, but I wanted NuttZo and my legacy to be about changing the world for the better, and specifically children. So I'm really proud to say that I've been to every project that we support. So that's kind of my me time and downtime, as well as giving back. And we usually take a group of women down to Peru. That's one of our biggest projects, where we have 22 indigenous children that live in this house during the week to go to school, to get an education. And we have 4 boys that are going on to a higher education, first time in their families. So first generation, getting their culinary degrees. 2 of them want to be mechanics. So again, just back to, a brand, like, customers really can tell authentic brands, and they do want to, even if something's a little more expensive, if they know that the authenticity of the brand, they're willing to to pay a little bit more. You know what I mean? So we found that as well, right? Consumers want to make a difference with their dollars. So it's been a really fun ride for sure.
Yeah, modern consumers are definitely looking for more than just the food or the drink anymore. Though it feels like NuttZo is still targeted toward a more specific consumer than a pretty broad audience, in that it is an elevated eating experience. Even though the origins of this brand were based on your children, uh, this is a brand that I see a lot of older consumers eating. And I don't mean older consumers as in like elderly people. I mean people who are not kids. So
Yeah.
is that the case? I mean, is that who your customers are? Who is that who they were? I mean, or are you trying to reach that more mainstream consumer, that everyday nut butter consumer?
Oh no, we're trying to reach those mono butters. So we have Smooth, which, there's so many brands out there, right? That are like, it's a muffin, but it's got 6 vegetables in their muffin and stuff. So we definitely have a very mature audience as far as like knowing like good quality and taste. To your point, we don't add any sugars or any kind of palm oil or hydrogenated oils. It's just amazing nuts and seeds. But yeah, obviously women are the number one shoppers at grocery stores. And, moms are always, as I was, trying to sneak things in, right, for their kids. So, getting Gregory, who is my 3.5-year-old, to eat a Brazil nut probably was going to be a big stretch, but having it in his nut butter that I did in the food processor, which would have been considered like our Peanut Pro Smooth, would have, he had no problem eating. So yeah. So, the other thing I would say is our consumers are really smart. So a lot of them are using them to, like, if in place of oil, you just would use NuttZo, or in your pancakes, just use NuttZo. So, there's a lot of ways to incorporate NuttZo in your everyday life, which isn't just to make it on a piece of bread with some jelly. And, yeah, so kids do love it. But that's, a lot of where the Smooth comes into play. And, we definitely want everyone to be able to enjoy NuttZo, not just the elitists or the Whole Foods buyers or Whole Foods customers, which we love, but, we think everyone should be eating a high quality product that gives you the benefit of different nuts and seeds. So we have a natural line, and we also have obviously an organic line. So we do want to be all things for all people, and we really want to, which we have done, is innovate the category to think, why not a mixed nut and seed? Like, why not getting all those different vitamins and minerals in your 2 tablespoons that you put into your smoothie, right?
And it's all about the customer, right? It's all about what the customer wants, and the quality that you can deliver to that customer. I think one of the first times we spoke was at a Nosh live event about 5 years ago, and I'm pretty sure you told me at that time that NuttZo, wants to treat your customers like Nordstrom does. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's just Nordstrom and Home Depot, right? The customer is always right. Like, to lose a customer, like, is the most painful thing for me, just because it takes so many dollars to gain that customer, right? So why squabble over, if somebody's taking the time to email you a complaint, or that they didn't like something, or they thought their jar wasn't completely filled the way they thought it should be, like, it's so much easier to just be the customer's always right. So our customer service is all about the customer's always right. And I think I told you this the last time I talked to you, but it's really sweet because it's kind of a family affair, NuttZo. And so my mom who just had her 77th birthday, actually answers the phone for Nutso. So she gives the best customer service because she doesn't tell people that she's my mom. And I'm just, sometimes I'm like, I wish you would, because sometimes people can be a little bit rude, but most of the time people are calling to be positive, and she's just so great because, nobody's going to handle a customer better than your mother.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I don't know. My mom might not be the best customer service rep sometimes, especially if they're being mean to me or
I
being mean
know.
about my brand. So,
It's the only time she gets a little upset, but no, she does a
yeah.
great job.
Well, how many calls a day does she get?
Well, she probably gets about 10 a day, and she'll answer even at like 10 o'clock at night. My dad will have a fit because she wants to answer even when it's way past. It doesn't matter where you think they're calling from, unless it was another country. Like there's no way that it's like the 9 to 5 that most people. But everyone's very appreciative because so many times you call a customer care center and it's just an automated voice. I'm sorry, and you're just like, oh my god, it's just irritating right from the beginning. So yeah, she takes her job pretty darn seriously.
Yeah, I would say so. 3,600 calls a year, an average of 3,600 or plus
Yeah.
calls a year. Yeah, that you got to be pretty serious about that. Do you encourage that? Do you encourage your customers to engage with you via phone or email or
Any way
social
they want.
media?
Yeah, I think it's important. We want to hear from them. I mean, a lot of our flavors were started because customers are giving us advice or things that they want, like the Power Feel, which is our non-peanut. I came out with that about a year and a half after I launched the Peanut Pro, and not that I needed another SKU or another headache, but customers we really love this Peanut Pro, but our child can't take peanuts to school, or we're trying to cut down on peanuts. Can you come up with a peanut free version? And so, yeah, it's definitely how a lot of our flavors have been launched, is from customers.
Earlier, you had talked about marketing and how much money you probably saved on marketing by not having a lot of money to start with.
My belief in marketing is it's not one size fits all. It's that you really have to take who's your consumer, where can I find them, where can I dominate the advertising, so I'm not with 5 million people or 5 million brands, and where I can get some one-on-one time to really make that difference, right? I hesitate when I'm getting a brief 3 seconds in front of somebody, because we know now that whole, you need somebody to see your brand 3 times before they remember you. I think now it's 25, right? It's just it's so different than it was 20, 30 years ago. So yeah, so I just think being really mindful of where you can find this mass group and, own it. You want to own that space so that they remember you, is super important.
One of the things that you shared with me the last time we spoke is that you have more of a fear of regret than failure. And I think that was such a really interesting thing. Yeah. Is that yours,
I hope
or
I'll
did
be
you?
able to see my name behind it. No, I said that. Now, whether someone can look that up and say somebody else said that, but that's my quote. So yeah, I mean, because I was trying to figure out, because failure is it's not like I don't have fear of failure. Of course I do. Everybody I know does. But one day I was trying to figure out, why am I different? Why is that not, just putting me into a coma state or a fetal position in my bed, right? Some days. And it is I have a fear of regret more than a fear of failure. So I'm not saying my fear of failure isn't high, but my fear of regret. So I doubt I'm going to be 80 someday, but if I do make it to 80, I just want to be able to look back on my life and not be bummed that I didn't try something because I was too scared, or I thought I was too old, or I thought that my time had passed, right? You hear of all these people getting their degrees or becoming a doctor, or, starting their business at freaking 60 or whatever. My whole philosophy is, you're never done until you're clearly done, and you can't breathe anymore. So get out there and do what you want to do. But yeah. So it makes me, I guess, a little different, but yeah,
Yeah,
regret.
it applies to life as much as it applies to business. And um, I wonder in what case that it has appeared in business where you've said, look, we'll probably fall down on our face, but we've got to try it.
Probably every other day. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, I mean, well, the whole business was started that way. And, again, I think to be a great entrepreneur, you have to have really good instincts that you listen to. So that sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, I think all entrepreneurs have it. And in your heart of hearts when something is like shouldn't happen, or you shouldn't be doing it, or you should, and you can't explain it any other way to say, but I just don't have a good feeling with this. And so there's definitely been instances where, whether it's a vendor or an investor, or it just wasn't a perfect match. And it's okay to say no. And it's okay to say it's not the right timing, or, but no is a very powerful word and probably should be used more often. So.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't say no when I asked if we could do this interview, because it's been such an amazing conversation. I've followed NuttZo for many years, and it's such a disruptive brand and concept. And we often talk about you have to be different, you have to be innovative, but not every disruptive, innovative brand makes it. And it's so great to see that you have, and that you'll continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Danielle, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. And hopefully we can catch up in person pretty soon, perhaps at Nosh Live in Santa Monica.
I would love it. So yeah, I can't wait to see you in person, the whites of your eyes, everything. I'm so sick of Zoom calls.
It's what we've got in the meantime, but we're turning a corner, hopefully. We're turning a corner.
I know, but it's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Indeed it has. Once again, thank you so much, Danielle.